So I suppose I just wanted to start by thanking you, Vanessa, for joining us on City Live today, and for agreeing to participate in this webinar series with Cosentino. It's a pleasure to obviously have you with us today. I know you've already got a kind of existing relationship with Cosentino. I know you, Chris mentioned that you opened our showroom back in September 2016, I think it was. So I wish I was managing the showroom at that point, so I could have been there. I'm sure it was a fantastic event.
I presented your awards to your showrooms as well one year. So a very special relationship for me with Cosentino, and I'm delighted to be here with you, and thank you very much for inviting me.
It's a pleasure, absolute pleasure. And obviously the kind of topic of conversation that we're going to be discussing today is really quite interesting and very, very important. Obviously, coronavirus and this pandemic has had a kind of massive effect on everybody's lives. And I think it's really important to kind of point out how the fact it's a global thing, isn't it? It's a global pandemic, and everybody is being affected by it. And obviously we're going to be talking specifically today about how this is going to affect specifically the design industry and the design sector. I think there are going to be some challenges ahead of us, and there's going to be challenges for everybody. But I think specifically for the design sector, there's going to be some definite kind of involvement and some changes. So how do you think, with regards to the pandemic, how do you think it's going to change the way we not only view our spaces, but also design our houses and our commercial spaces as well?
Well, I think because most people will now change the way that they work, their working environment. Because we've now got technology, and it's actually one benefit of, if there is a benefit of a pandemic, but one thing that I should say that's come out of it is that it's driven everybody online to use various different tools like Zoom and Teams and Starburst, or whatever it is, all these other different platforms, rather than rushing across cities and towns every day to have face-to-face meetings, because we can still have that face-to-face interaction, but we don't have to do the traveling. So I think that's been a good thing, because we can be far more productive. But that's moved us into the fact that we'll now be spending more time static. And that means that we don't necessarily need to travel to the office every day to then do our jobs. So we'll work from home more. And because people will work from home, they will have had to designate a guest room or a space within their bedroom or somewhere, which is a quiet space to actually hold these meetings and conduct their business from home. So I think we'll work in a slightly less pressure cooker environment. And I think that's productive for our well-being, because we tend to produce more when we can go at the pace that's comfortable for us. Our output is stronger, it's improved, but it means that the actual house will have different spaces designated for work. And I think that also means that we have to also change our mentality, because it's very easy to be sat on the sofa, watching daytime TV with our laptop and in pajamas, not dressed, haven't done our hair, etc.
Yeah,
work like that. We can work like that at home, and it's difficult because we're going to put in our 8 or 10 hour day or whatever everybody says. We have to be more disciplined as to the start and stop time and to turn off. So people that are successful working at home will designate the hours that they work and the time that they put into it, and separate their work lifestyle. So I think those changes are going to be evident in the way that we live within the home. But because the pandemic is an unknown pandemic, we don't know what caused it yet, we don't know how to resolve it, and we don't know when it's next coming back to get us all in any location. So that sort of unknown makes us always, wherever we are and whatever happens in life, when things go wrong, it's a natural emotion to gravitate back to your base, whatever your base is, or wherever your home is. Either it's your rental or you go back to your family or wherever. But the home environment has now become a much stronger place. And I feel, looking back over these last couple of months, that families have drawn together. They're sitting at a table and eating together, and they're having more conversations with each other, and they're playing games together. So I think the actual interaction between families has been stronger within each family unit, but it's been harder to interact with people outside of your individual home, even though you've got that technology. So I think there'll be more home entertaining, and I think that this pandemic will make people appreciate their homes much more.
Absolutely. And as you said, that our homes have definitely evolved already. I mean, I look around my home and I not only see my office, but I see my gym and I see my relaxing space. And, you know, the home is now, you know, encompassing all these different qualities and these things that we need from it. And I think for that reason, we need to almost, you know, as you said, respect it a lot more and put more love into it. And you're absolutely right about, you know, spending more time with loved ones and actually putting the phone away. You know, I mean, it's one of those things. Obviously, things are becoming a lot more digital now, and so we're interacting, I think, better with people when we're actually with them, instead of being on our devices all the time. So I think that's really, really interesting. And with regards to the homes, then, with regards to people using the homes more for kind of working and exercising and hosting, etc. Do you think there's going to be more of a demand for resilient surfaces or multi-purpose surfaces? Or do you think we're going to move into more of a space where there's going to be a demand for natural materials inside the homes, where people want to be more with nature and they want to be more outdoors, but obviously they're indoors because they need to do their job? Do you think that's going to be a change we're going to see?
Well, I think that climate change has a lot to do with that question, because, you know, we have longer summers, we have less severe winters. It's, you know, it used to be that children went back to school in September after the summer holidays, wrapped up in hats and coats and gloves because it was freezing. And that's not the case in September now. It can still be very sunny and you can still be sat outside on garden furniture. So actually moving the home life outside has changed the surfaces for the outside life, bringing the outside in and the inside out. That is a feeling that I agree with you in terms of people want nature. They definitely find, and nature is very calming. So being around open space and trees and natural elements is a very calming feeling. Is that, you know, a garden that's got running water is soothing for some people. It might be, you know, make a lot of men run to the bathroom, but in general, it's regarded as a very soothing scenario. Yeah. So I think that the surfaces is something that people will consider and change their priorities. They may have years ago thought, oh, I like that because it's natural. I think the key priority for change following this pandemic will be, you know, can I keep it clean? And not just clean, but, you know, hygienic, anti, you know, the virus can last, from what I've read, from the science things, it can last on a surface for 72 hours, and shiny surfaces particularly. So those types of statements from scientists are going to have a huge impact on the surfaces that people choose, whether that's floor or worktops, and whether that's in the home or in the workspace. So anything that is going to carry infection for a longer period of time than an alternative will lose its attractiveness, because it's going to be, I mean, we don't know how long this pandemic's going to be in our lives before we find a solution, and therefore it's going to be a way of life that we're going to be facing screens and masks amongst each other as we move around the world again. And we don't know how long that will be. So I do think it will influence the trends and the way designers select products for the future. And I think that in turn, that will influence the way things look in terms of aesthetics.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we might even see, I know I mentioned more kind of natural materials, but we may even see less wood. I mean, because wood's quite porous, isn't it? And it's not very resilient. I mean, I'm currently working from our kitchen table, and that's a wooden table, and it's just not really, it's not fit for purpose. I've got my laptop on there, I've got my iPad, I've got my pens and my notebooks, and it just damages the surface. So I think we'll definitely be moving towards a kind of more of a solid surface for definite. And obviously, I know you mentioned people, repurposing, a spare bedroom or, a space that they've maybe neglected in their house and repurposing it into an office space. Do you think that people that have already got an existing office space, so those that have, the flexibility of being able to work from home, do you think that those existing spaces are going to be evolved? Do you think they're going to change, or do you think people will just leave them as they are?
Well, I think you've answered that, because your kitchen table is fine when it's you, but even you have now looked at that and thought, and you bought it and loved it when you saw it and said, that's it. But now with this environment, you probably think this is probably not fit for purpose. Now, you could invite your friend round or family round and just sit, two of you sitting having a coffee, a meter or 2 meters apart from each other. But when they leave, how are you going to sanitize that table? That's very different to a different surface, because, as you say, it's a porous surface. So the wood is already, I mean, a lot of people have wooden toilet seats, and I think all of the wooden toilet seats are going to be removed, because that, again, and all of the wooden tabletops will be removed in people's kitchens, because people will probably host more lunches and dinners and family reunions in the home rather than in restaurants, because there's less chance to contract viruses and things in the home than there would be in multi-mixed places in restaurants. And they're struggling, the restaurant. But I'm not saying necessarily people will cook more. I'm just saying that they might entertain at home more. So I think that the kitchen worktops and the environments that have to multi-purpose will need to be cleaned at a flick of a sanitizer spray or a cloth. And I know that Cosentino do make worktops, because I've used them. And in fact, I've got my kitchen worktop now. I think of it, is Cosentino. It is all, yeah, and I love it, because it's hygiene, hygiene proof, isn't it? What's the wording?
Hygiene friendly, I would call
Hygiene
it. Hygiene
friendly. and I'm such a clean freak. For me, that was perfect. I've always had granite, but when I moved house, my last move, I said, no, I'm going to go for a man-made, because it's 99%, am I right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely, 99% kind of hygiene friendly. I mean, it's totally it's got zero porosity, so nothing is going to be absorbed at all into that surface. So you can just clean it as with anything you like, and yeah, absolutely is perfect for this kind of, I suppose, this use of this pandemic is great.
Well, I've got a granite table. My dining table is granite, and my kitchen island is Cosentino. And I have to say, I sit at the Cosentino on the bar stool, because I can spread all my things out, and because I don't like fingerprints or anything,
Yeah,
it's just easy to keep clean. So for me, I love it. But I do think that as families and people interact in the home more, they'll every surface, whether it's the floor or the sort of office space, or the kitchen space, it will need to be easy clean and not have to wait. You don't want to, like with wood, you don't want to go out and have to clean it with 3 or 4 different types of cleaners, wait for it to dry through, and then 10 minutes later somebody else touches it and you're back where you started. So I do see that materials will be a huge influence on how designers will select and specify products. And the thing, going back to that, is that when because I've always had stone in the kitchen as worktops, the reason that I chose the one I have is because it looks like marble, and that was my purpose. I can still have the same look, but I've got the benefits of the man-made. And I know that years ago I wouldn't have seen that. Years ago I would have thought, and I did, I thought, oh, if I have granite, I want the real thing. But you know, if you have somebody else come and help you cleaning, then they spill bleach, or goodness. I had all these patches which were detergents that had stained and marked it, and it never looks clean then. Once it's marked, it's marked. Whereas this one doesn't. It's bleach proof. I mean, everything that they managed to mark and stain my granite with, I have got spotless, no marks. It looks like brand new, and I'm very happy with it. So I feel like I made a decision when I did this.
Oh, good. I am so pleased that it's doing what it should be doing, and it's doing its job. I mean, you're absolutely right. I think with people using the kitchens more now for a lot more things. I mean, they're not only using them, but they're using them to work and to have work meetings, and I don't know, doing virtual cooking classes with their grandparents. You know, it's definitely a multi-use space at the moment, and I think it needs to be resilient, but it also needs to be, as you say, it needs to be hygienic, and it needs to be able to be cleaned and wiped down regularly without it actually damaging the surface itself. So I think there is going to be a shift in terms of, as you say, what kind of designers are going to be selecting when they're working on projects, in terms of the surfaces, both on floors and walls and everywhere. I think there's going to be a shift.
I think that because people will be working at home so much, or from home so much more, it means that they don't need to live in the centre of every city. So if you've got a young family, you can move out a bit, have a garden, have more space, and still keep your job, and still, I mean, in my office, we would be normally something between 11 and 14 people. And at the moment, I've said to everybody, stay working remotely. You don't need to come in because it's fine. Everyone's doing their work very well. And I'm the only person working, of course, I'm the only person in the office, but I've learned to use the franking machine. I've learned to stamp. I've done.
Yeah. You know what? I couldn't agree more. There are so many things that I just didn't have time to really learn how to use or how to do. Yeah. And now I'm able to do that. I don't have to travel in. I don't have to spend an hour going into work or an hour home. I can just, and I've learned new things, and it's I think it's positive. Obviously there are so many negative things that have happened as a result of coronavirus, of course. But just talking about how we're evolving, and I think that's incredibly important. But when you're talking about obviously working in an office space, going back to the design industry, do you think that obviously a lot of designers they do work collaboratively, and they're used to working in office spaces and teams, etc. Do you think that it's going to be difficult for them without having that ability to work collaboratively as much anymore?
No, I actually don't. I mean, I feel that you can have a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting where you all chat, and we tend to do that once every couple of weeks. We don't even do it weekly, whereas in the office, everyone used to walk in. We start at 10 and finish at 6, and everyone used to walk in and say, morning, morning, and all you'd hear all day was click, 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 click with the keyboards going. But we were all so busy on our keyboards, we didn't really, and we would be 6 feet away from each other, but past each other emails. We didn't speak. There was no noise. It was only when people went out for lunch. Does anybody want anything? And people get up and go to the bathroom. But outside of that, there was nothing. No extra. I think we probably communicate face to face more now by being in separate environments than we did when we were in one space. And so for me, we have we're on 3 stories, and so we've changed that space, so that I will be able to um, lose one of those floors and lose one of those areas. I'm going to relocate, reconfigure everything. And that means that, and I think a lot of companies will do that they don't need as much office space because people can work outside. And I think that will also help in the quality of the recruitment, because you can employ somebody that lives 40 miles away or an hour and a half's journey, that ordinarily to do that on a daily basis would be unreasonable. But
Yeah.
if you were to come in once a month or twice a month for a team meeting to sit around a table, you can schedule that. And, it's like I have days where I'm doing all my online meetings. Those are the days that I will do my hair and get dressed properly and everything. But the rest of the time, I don't.
The night before, get ready.
I was watching something on Twitter the other day where a man was on the TV and he was asked, he was a sportsman, and he was asked to do something, and then he was sat on breakfast TV doing something, and the broadcaster said, could you show us how you do that? And he said, no, I can't. And he said, no, just stand up and do it. He said, no, I can't, I haven't got any trousers on. And I thought, yes,
Yeah.
that we don't need to do I don't think we need to live in the city so much. I think we can have bigger space, we can live outside, we can recruit from a bigger pool, we can have a better lifestyle, we can do more and achieve more. And I think even for most designers, they can do a lot of what they would do collectively, they'll do at home, which is, the software, the sourcing, the scheduling, and creating all the sort of spreadsheets and layouts and things. All of that would be done independently anyway. It's usually the planning that we're, putting together the schemes and the design team meetings. But even that, you can still do so much of that online. And when you look at the cost of the people in those roles, they're on such high value, annual salaries, that the amount of, I've been speaking to like a hotelier who owns, about 40 hotels, who said, what was I doing driving up and down the country to all these meetings? I'm never doing that again. And I think that's what's going to happen. None of us are going to have so many face-to-face meetings in physical terms. We'll have face-to-face meetings online.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. I think we're definitely going to be moving more towards that, because if you don't need to be physically present, and you can do exactly the same thing online via Teams or Zoom or Skype, etc., then and also it's better for the environment, isn't it? We're not really, driving anywhere or getting on transport. It's almost like a win-win. And they do say that people tend to feel most comfortable going into the office 2 to 3 times a week. I mean, it's not necessary to go in. It depends on what your job is and what you do. But for most people, as you said, most designers and architects, they can do everything that they need to from home. And I know the government is now potentially looking at introducing a 4-day working week. So there's definitely going to be, I believe, quite a big shift towards that.
I think that's also a 4-day week means that in order to fulfill the roles, you'll employ more people. So the actual work load is spread through more people in each company. So that makes sense, as opposed to having a few people with a good job with a whole lot of money and quite a lot of people with no job and no money. So that spread of chores and workload is I think it's a very valuable solution for the future. And I think that being able to interact with other designers, we do that at trade shows and at various what I call big ticket things. And we'll still need to come and touch and feel things. And that's one of the things. I mean, I have bought lots of things online, and when they arrive, I think, oh dear, that an oven dish, and when it arrived, it was more like a cereal bowl. I thought, oh, I got that wrong. I was expecting a very big
You're not allowed, Vanessa.
So we all get so many things wrong online that I haven't got that proportion thing right. But but there's lots of things that I think the gain from it is much more than the loss. And I think the quality of life is going to be so superior to be able to work, from my point of view as an employer, as long as I get my 8 hours a day or whatever it's going to be for each person, I'm happy. And therein there has to be trust. But in addition to the trust, you have to have some weight to measure and accountability. And you can always tell that people are doing their work. And I've always found that if you've got good people around you and you're a good boss, that most people will do more than they're obliged to do when they work at home, because they enjoy it and they're getting on with it. And suddenly they look, and instead of it being 6 o'clock, it's suddenly 7:15. If that's, and they, oh, I've got to put this down, but they carry on. So I don't see that the old days you had to stand over somebody and watch them to make sure they worked. If you don't think you're getting your money's worth, you wouldn't keep that person. And if they're not skilled enough at their job, they shouldn't be there. So I don't see a reason to need to have people at work other than the fact that that was the only place where they could do the job. That's no longer the case. So why not work from home more?
No, it's a really kind of interesting point you make there, actually, because I find we were almost, before coronavirus, it felt as though we were almost everybody was almost at breaking point, where it felt as though everybody was just so, inundated with work and, trying to get the balance right. And I feel like now is the opportunity for us to, we're going to have to reset, absolutely. And there's going to be opportunities, there's going to be challenges, but I think this at the moment is a real opportunity for, as you said, to spread that workload and maybe work more digitally, but also have that right balance of being able to come into the office maybe once a week or maybe twice a week when we need to be collaborative. So I think it's a really kind of interesting point. I never really thought about it like that. So thank you, Vanessa. Open my eyes a little bit there. They talk about lots of people being made redundant and lots of people being out of work, but actually it doesn't. There is a solution for that, which you've just highlighted. So
it's just we've just got to, it's funny, we all do things the way we inherit, but designers are very resilient and resistant to change, because it's like, no, that's how I do it, no, that's how I've always done it. And yet what they're in their title, it's to recreate things. And during this time, every morning when I come to the office, I go through an area of a small park area, and when the lockdown first started, all the fathers were on their mobile phones, and the children were falling off their bikes, and they weren't paying attention at all, and they probably didn't know how to interact with their children. And the other day I looked at these fathers. I see fathers with babies in slings, and they're quite happy walking with them. And I see another father, he's playing goalie with his children, and I was thinking, actually, fathers are interactive. They're no longer just doing the chore, they're actually enjoying it. And that's because they've got time to do it. And so if I take my own staff, they are saving 10 hours a week travel and 5 days a week buying lunches. I know that's a burden to that sector of business, but if they spent £5 a week on their lunch in the local supermarket, that's £25 a week on lunch minimum. That's a minimum of £100 a month, plus their travel time. So they can see that they're already a couple of £100 a month better off from working at home, plus the sort of social benefit of those 2 hours a week. And I met another friend of mine who works in the city, and she said, what was I thinking being up at 5:15 going to the gym before the office? And she said, now I look and I think, oh, it's 8 o'clock, I'll get up now. And I said that should be normal. The fact that we were all getting up at 4 and 5 in the morning and going to work, and I've done that for years, and now I think actually this is a pace of life that I enjoy. I actually enjoy my work again. It's no longer frantic.
There's no more kind of time pressures, isn't there? I mean, people have designated start times and finish times, and I think there always seems to be a mad rush in the morning to get somewhere by a certain time, and that I hope so for myself anyway, that's something that's not
in the past.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly.
Date.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I think another point you touched on is that this new potential way of life actually gives people more time that they didn't have before, which means that actually they can be more creative, because everything is at the moment is very task driven, and it's very much just tick that box and get that done. Whereas actually, I think we need to be more creative, not just only in the design sector and the creative industry, but everywhere. You know, we need time to just pause and think about different ways and better ways of doing things. And I think that's definitely going to be something that's going to hopefully happen more and more.
I think that the social media, as much as it was fun at the beginning, and then it became a marketing tool, and then it became something that was the sort of the modern telephone number, if you like. There isn't a van on any road that hasn't got its social media logos and handles on the back, where you used to just have the name of the company and the phone number. So the social media became an addictive thing. And I think we've all done it. You go on holiday and everyone's still glued to their phones, still pressing buttons. And actually, even with that, I think that we've learned that none of it's as important as we thought it was. And we were earning all this money to then spend it by flying on these planes to the other side of the world to sit somewhere and then say this is relaxing time. Whereas if you roll it back, you didn't need to do that. I mean, this summer, somebody said to me the other day, where are you going on holiday this year? I said, there's a pandemic. I'm not going anywhere. And I thought, would I get on a plane now and go to another country to sit in the sun? And I thought, no, well, because I'm quite happy where I am to sit outside in my garden, and that's absolutely all I need. And I'd never really even considered that. If I'd have done that a year ago, I'd have said I didn't have a holiday. Whereas this year, I see that as actually something that I want to do, and I feel yes. So I think we probably won't travel as much, which, as you said earlier, that means that's more eco-friendly. We'll probably entertain in the home much more, because we'll invite people round to our homes for barbecues and dinner parties and things that we didn't do before. When I first got married, I did invite people round, and I cooked badly. Now I invite people around for drinks, and we go out for dinner. So, and I've done that for years. I mean, I don't think I even have the china anymore to do that. So, and I wouldn't want to, but now I think since this pandemic, it's less show off. You don't need a set of china. You can have whatever you've got, and people come round just to see each other. It's going to be different. I think we've changed, and because it's been a global change, it's something that whoever you're talking to, wherever they are in the world, they all feel it the same way. They've all gone through the same experiences, or they know somebody who's suffered from it. So it has been a step change in the human race, I think.
Definitely, because I think if it wasn't a global pandemic, then there wouldn't be, there might have been a temporary shift change, but then everything would just probably go back to normal. Whereas I think with this, that's not going to be the case. It is going to be, the changes that are going to be happening are going to be around kind of for the foreseeable. So it's going to be interesting, and it's one of those things that nobody really knows what's going to happen. for sure. Anyway, we could talk about this for probably hours and hours and days, couldn't we? With all the possibilities of, you know, what could happen. But one of the other things I wanted to just ask you actually was about the design festival. So obviously, Clerkenwell Design Week and London Design Festival, they're annual events. And obviously, Clerkenwell Design Week usually happens in May. And unfortunately, this year it had to be postponed to next year, which I was absolutely gutted about. I was really looking forward to it. But with the absence of these design festivals this year, I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen every year, but this year, where do you think creatives will now be turning to get inspiration from?
Well, I think that generally they'll take their books off their shelves and they'll look through things, because we get inspired from travel and we get inspired from the things that we see. And I think people will travel around the UK as their holidays, so they'll be inspired from things that most people have stopped holidaying in their own country for many years, and they feel that a holiday has to be on an aeroplane. And so just traveling around our own countries will inspire us, because it's like, wow, look at that house from the outside. Doesn't that look amazing? So people will notice proportion and architecture and colours and different things just by travelling around. I mean, even if I think of, you know, I live in London, but if I was to travel to Cornwall, I'd be inspired by, you know, the sea and the beach and the colours and the boats. So I think we'll get our inspiration from our local environment rather than from the trade shows and the new things. And that will maybe have at the moment, if you were to ask me what's on trend for interior design in the home, I would say, well, most people want glitz, glamour, super shiny, glossy, glittery, fabulous. Those are the words and adjectives I would say describe your average interior,
Right.
a modern interior. I think those adjectives will be changed to things like natural, calm, warm, antique. You know, we will tone down the show off, if you like, and it will be more about being friendly, more about usability and functionality rather than showcase homes, and we'll enjoy them more. I think there'll be less formal sofas and more squidgy sofas, you know. And we often follow fashion, and I've been watching fashion over the last 5 or 6 years, and it's less structured and classic. It's more bohemian and easy wear and less one size fits all, you know. And I think that in terms of adjectives will start to fit into the interior design industry too, because I think that we when we invite people around, they will be our true friends who know what we like, and we won't be standing on ceremony. It will be just casual and as it is, and that's what people will enjoy. And I've always thought that, you know, if I invite someone to my home, it's because I really want them there. And if someone invites me to their home, I see it as much more personal than being invited to a restaurant. You know, I'm in their space rather than neutral space. So I think the trends will be in the way that designers are inspired will be based around the use and the way people live in it. And I think they'll take that from looking back and history. So I think they'll look in books and they'll look at, you know, going back a few decades. So you might see a revival of, you know, post-war where people didn't perhaps have so much and they had to make do. And that type of, you know, upcycling, it will become more, you know, more inspiring. So I think it's going to be less show off and more function.
Yeah, I agree. I think our kind of our new potential way of life is going to be reflected in our interiors, which is essentially what you just said. So I think there's going to be a shift there as well. And in terms of our kind of suppliers, do you think suppliers should now think about getting showrooms where interior designers or architects can go there and get inspiration but also hold meetings with clients there as well. Do you think there could be the possibility that they should start thinking about doing that or moving in that direction?
Exactly what will happen. I think that when designers meet with their clients, they no longer meet them in their office. They'll meet them in a showroom to touch and feel things. And I think showrooms will be more about having one item that is purely for that reason. So if you were selling beds or sofas, you'd have them there, and it would be for people to just, a bit like they are now, but you wouldn't order it there and then have it delivered the following week. The showrooms will hold those pieces purely for touch and feel. And I think designers will be bringing their clients in for that purpose much more than they would have done in the past. And I think that's how I started out. You used to take your client with you to a showroom.
Yeah.
And then slowly it morphed. Mainly now I would go to my client and take all my samples with me and say, here it is. Rarely would a client, in fact, I don't think a client has been to my office for at least 5 years. I just don't, I always go to the venue and have a meeting at the venue. I might go to them first, but then there might be something where I send them and say, go there and have a look at that. Go to this. I generally send them on their own to showrooms. But I think I would see now there'll be more sort of virtual meetings with clients, and therefore you'll meet your client and the at a showroom and have sort of showroom office space, if you like. There might be designers and clients having a hot desk in a showroom where they place, because I do think there's going to be so much more office space that's going to be reconfigured into something else. And I think showrooms would not need to be as huge as they are. I don't think they're going to be. I don't think you're going to have the same amount of foot traffic coming through it from just Saturday shoppers coming through. I think there'll be purpose meetings.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think I've been monitoring the requests that have been coming through, and they're definitely from interior designers and architects that are really interested in kind of just coming into the showroom and learning about the product. Whereas perhaps before it was just a case of just kind of coming in,
browsing,
just kind of browsing through. So I think it's going to be interesting.
Research at home and then shortlist 2 or 3 things and then go and look at those, because we're probably we've got more time to source and more time to, and it won't be just sourcing by the aesthetic, which I do think is what happens in a showroom. I think people will want to know about the technology and what's going on behind the product, and what's the service like, and what happens if it goes wrong, and how will I repair it if it arrives damaged or something. Those are points that designers will have time to think about and consider. And so they'll be looking and asking manufacturers, what's your position on these things, and then they'll choose, but with their, they'll order with their feet. They will find that not only are they buying by aesthetic and price, which have always been the 2 leading things. It's yes, I needed a tap. It needs to be for this. It needs to have a 15-year warranty, and it needs to be under £500. That was the criteria, and you'd say my purchase orders or inquiry orders would go out saying, what's your lead time and how much is this product? Those were the 2 key elements for me to ask, and I don't think that I'm sorry about that.
That's all right, don't worry.
Well, it's not ringing off, so she'll have to edit this bit.
That's all right, it's no problem.
I don't think that. Oh my goodness! Sorry.
Someone wants you, Vanessa.
I'm in the office, so I'm hoping that has bounced through to somebody else. Right. Yeah. So I think that that will change.
Definitely, absolutely. Well, that's been so insightful. You are such an interesting lady to talk to, and I've really enjoyed having this conversation with you today. And I think I think what we've touched on is that there is going to be quite a big kind of shift change, especially within the design sector. There's going to be lots of positives potentially to come out of this this pandemic. Well, that's an awful thing to say, but you know, with the way that things are moving. Sorry, did you want to add something there? Sorry.
No, I'm saying I agree with you. I think that we have to take the best out of a bad
Yeah,
situation.
yeah, exactly. And there is going to be a change, isn't there? So, and as I said before, nobody really knows exactly what's going to happen, and this is probably going to happen over the next 10 years. There's going to be these gradual changes that are going to begin to kind of take form. So it's really, really interesting. And obviously you're joining us again next week, and we're going to be talking about the same topic, but we're going to be talking more about technology and how technology is going to potentially be affected, or what's going to be developing in that kind of area. So I really look forward to talking to you again, Vanessa, and talking about technology.
Thank you so much. I could talk for
I know.
to you.
I know it's crazy, isn't it? You could talk for hours and days about this topic. Sorry, thank you very much, Vanessa. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you so much. Have a good day. Take care.
Bye.